Okay, friends. Let's see. We have everybody here with us. I'm such a Zoom newbie. Okay. It's good to learn these things though. So friends, so real quick, just a quick announcement before we get started. Remember the Q&A is tonight at, what did I say, 6:30? Somewhere's around there. Yeah, 6:30. And so you can, if you have any questions that you'd like me to answer, then you can send them to me via email if you like. Or if you want, you can just, raise your hand, do the raise hand thingy and ask your question, live. You can do that. But if you want to ask anonymously, you can do that as well. Send it to an email or send it to me via the chat, via PM. And this way, the more questions you have, the better, because the more questions you have, then we can fill out the time and then have our final meditation at night. So I've left a good amount of time for questions. Sometimes people have a lot of questions. Sometimes people don't have much questions at all. But we'll see how it goes. But that'll be for tonight. So think of your questions. Anything related to the topic of the retreat, anything related to Buddhism, Dhamma, monks, monastics, meditation, all within that sphere. You can ask questions related to that. So this is our second talk. And let me start out where I didn't do the first time, but we should do this every time before I give a talk, is homage to the Buddha. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. So friends, we continue with our second of 4 talks here in this weekend retreat on death and life. And I want to start out with talking about the historical and, mythological historical story of how the Buddha went forth. There's different traditions in between late and early. There's different ways of putting it, but maybe you're familiar with the whole Buddha as a prince. And then he renounced, saw 4 sights. He saw the divine messengers and he saw 4 sights. And then he renounced to try to find a way to awakening. The traditional story is very grand, very grandiose, like involving elephants and people being put to sleep so he can sneak out and things like that. The early texts that I followed, like the suttas, that stuff is not from the suttas, but there is a core there that is the most important part of this whole story of the Buddha going forth. And the core is the divine messengers. Right? In the traditional story, the Buddha is hidden away. Right? He's hidden away by the king so that he won't become a Buddha. He's hidden away from all the dukkha of life. right? And then he wants to go out and see his people, and he inadvertently sees what? An old man, a sick man, a dead man, and then he sees a sadhu, a samana, right? A wandering, shaven-headed ascetic. These sights, particularly the first three, are what's important. So there is the closest thing to an origin story that we have where the Buddha is talking about his upbringing in the suttas is a sutta from the Anguttara Nikaya 3.39. And again, don't worry, I'll put this all in a reference for you guys at the end. It's called Delicate. And the Buddha talks about how he's talking to the monks and he says, "Bhikkhus, I was delicately nurtured. I had only the finest sandalwood from Kazi. I had the finest, shoes and finest clothes and all these things. I had 3 mansions, one for each of the seasons." Right? And so we know now that the Sakyan kingdom that he was part of was actually not a kingdom, it was a republic. So the Buddha would be more along the lines, you consider him like a senator's son, as opposed to a prince. But still, he was still very, family was still very influential, very rich. And so he had 3 mansions, right? One for each season of the Indian seasons. The hot season, the winter season, and the rainy season. And so he says, I had all of the finest musicians and attendees, all of whom were women, right? So he's talking about how he is just living what some younger generation would call the baller lifestyle, right? He has everything that he could want in terms of pleasures of the senses. But he said he started to think. He said, when I see an old person or a sick person or a dead person, lots of feelings of aversion, feelings of agitation towards that person arise in me. But that's not really proper, is it? Because I too am subject to that. Right? If I were to be agitated towards a sick person, that would not be proper because I am liable to be sick. If I am to be averse towards a dead person, that would not be proper because I am liable to die. Towards an old person would not be proper, for I am liable to grow old. It's one of the sad things these days of how society treats the older people these days. And I was lucky enough to grow up around the greatest generation. I grew up around a lot of older people. And, I always thought to myself, well, when I get old, I don't want to be treated poorly. We should treat this, So the Buddha is saying, if I were to be agitated just towards somebody because they're old, that would not be proper because I'm going to get old. And so the Buddha said that when he reflected upon these things, he understood that he had 3 intoxications. The Pali word here literally translates to like being drunk. Like you are literally, this is what this means, like you are intoxicated, you are drunk on these things. The intoxication with youth, right? Because we are intoxicated with youth. We have aversion towards old age. As we grow older, we start to get little gray hairs and we dye our hair and things like that, right? If we can afford it, we get the Botox and all these kind of things to try to not look old so that we can confuse ourselves, that we can, pull the wool over ourselves that we're not getting old. Right? We have this intoxication with youth. Buddha says we have an intoxication with health. Right? We want to be healthy. We don't like sickness. We don't like people who are sick. You can see that in the last couple of years. For all the fears, people have been so fearful that they've been allowed to, like, oh my God, somebody's not unvaccinated. They're a horrible person. They're diseased. Right? That's dangerous lines of thinking. But that's part of our intoxication with health and our attachment to being healthy. And then we have a third thing. Because we are afraid of death, right? Because we don't like death, we have an intoxication with life. And so the Buddha says we have these three things: intoxication with youth, health, and life. At the root of why old age, sickness, and death are things that we run away from, we avoid, we dislike. So these three things, old age, sickness, and death. There's a sutta called Devadutta Sutta. Deva means the gods. Dutta means messenger. So these are messengers of the gods, otherwise translated as divine messengers. And in this sutta, the Buddha tells about how a person, they say a man does bad deeds by body, speech, and mind. And upon death, he goes to the woeful states. And when he goes to the hells, he meets King Yama. And King Yama questions him. The guards of the guards of hell bring the person to King Yama, and they say, this person did not respect mother and father, did not do good deeds, etc. And so King Yama, now, of course, if you're Judeo-Christian like me, you're raised that there's like, oh God, we got to hear about hells and things like that. Don't let that put you off from the message. The message is important. So the Buddha continues with telling the story. And so he goes in front of King Yama, the being who has been unskillful. And King Yama says, did you not see the divine messengers? And the guy's like, well, no, I guess not. And so then King Yama says, did you not see an old person, elderly, decrepit, walking with a cane, right? Hair falling out, etc. And the guy's like, oh yeah, I did. Yeah, I saw such a person. And so King Yama says, did it not occur to you that I am also going to be this way? So I should act good, act skillfully, do good deeds of merit? And the guy's like, I guess not. So then King Yama says, well, your mother, your father, your siblings, nobody did these actions but yourself. So you will be the heir of these actions. And so then King Yama says, did you see the second divine messenger? No. You mean you did not see somebody sick, diseased, with pox and with boils or whatever, all kinds of things that could happen? And he said, yeah, I did. I saw that. So did you not think, well, I could be the same way? This will happen to me as well? No, I didn't. Well, you are alone are the one who committed your actions, and you alone will be the heir to them. And so then the third one, did you not see the third divine messenger? No, I didn't see. Did you not see a dead person? Oh, yeah, I did. Did you not reflect on that one day you will also be dead? No, I didn't. Ah, well, you will be the heir of your actions. And then then the Buddha goes into descriptions that rival or surpass that of the Judeo-Christian hell in terms of what's going to happen to the person. But we don't need to go into that. The point is that these three things, these divine messengers, are extremely important. I have done a retreat like this before, and I've named it the Divine Messengers Retreat. And that's a little bit confusing to people who don't really know what that is. It's really a mindfulness of death retreat, but it's really about the divine messengers. And so these divine messengers, old age, sickness, and death, they are literally what spurred the Buddha on to his quest, on his path to become awakened, to go beyond old age, sickness, and death. They are that important. They are literally at the cornerstone of the teachings. They're literally at the cornerstone, at the beginning of the path. The Buddha calls this the Arya Pariyesana, the noble quest or the noble search. The noble search for freedom from suffering. And that begins with fully understanding and fully seeing the divine messengers that are smacking you in the face every day, but that you don't see. There's a Thanissaro Bhikkhu. Many of you might know Thanissaro Bhikkhu. He's a very well-known Theravada monastic out in California, Wat Metta. And I heard the story of, they were, I guess, out and about. Maybe they were going to a house blessing or something in California. And, as typical, he has young men, young monks. And, one young monk apparently told him, was like, Ajahn, I'm having trouble because, maybe it was on the beach and there was lots of, beautiful women in bikinis or whatever wandering around. And so he's like, Ajahn, I'm having trouble being, keeping my eyes disciplined. And so the Ajahn response, which is an amazingly wise response, he said, instead of looking at young, find the old. And the way the story was told was like, all of a sudden he started noticing, right, that there were other people around other than young, beautiful women, right? That there were what we have a focus on because we have an intoxication with youth, health, and life. So that's what we look for. Right? But we don't want to see these other things. They're there. They're smacking us in the face. We don't have to go far to see old age, sickness, and death. We just have to have eyes to see. Right? That doesn't mean that we need biological eyes. It means that our mind is open to see these things. In many ways, our perception shows us what we want to see. So we have to hack that and have a wider view so that we can see everything and have a true understanding of what this nature of reality is. This nature of old age, sickness, and death. The divine messengers are very important. As you get older, you can even see that you don't even need to go far. Right? Like I said, I'm going to be 44, right? You know, I mean, I already started getting some gray hair when I was in my 30s. So, but unfortunately, because I shave, I don't see them anymore. That's a good divine messenger, gray hair. Right? And my eyes, you know, like as you get older, it gets blurrier, closer in, right? I'm starting to see all of these signs that, hey, you ain't getting any younger. And this is only the beginning. You're going to see a lot more signs, you know, because you're still a youngster. I've seen Bhante G, who's now 94. And when he was like 92, I've seen him call a 60-year-old youngster. So you could say age is relative in that regard, right? So this is the important thing, to see these things. And so this is why the Buddha in a sutta called the 5 subjects for contemplation gives us to reflect, to have us to reflect on these 5 things. And guess what? You did this for the guided meditation this morning. These themes, these 5 themes or 5 subjects of contemplation, are seen in many places in the suttas. Like, for instance, there's one sutta where King Pasenadi, his main wife, dies, and it says that he's kind of distraught, and he's kind of like the Hollywood thing where it's like he's not taking a bath, he's just sitting there slumped and depressed and all these kind of things. And the Buddha comes to him, and you know, he tells the Buddha what happened, and the Buddha says, it cannot be otherwise. That which is liable to be born is liable to die. He tells him there are these 5 things. The Buddha says that there is no guarantor against these things in life, meaning that nobody can guarantee you, nobody can make it otherwise. That these 5 things. So the Buddha starts, it says, whether you are a woman or a man, a lay person or an ordained person, one should reflect upon these things often. So it doesn't matter who you are. There's no excuse, as some of the later things might be given an excuse, that lay people shouldn't practice this. There's no excuse for lay people to not practice any of these things, because I practice them as a lay person. And I think the way I present them and teach them is in a good, balanced way for people to even lay people to practice these. But so the Buddha is saying, these 5 things, you should always reflect on these things. What are they? First one is, I am subject to aging, to old age, to decay. I'm not exempt from aging. I'm subject to illness and disease. I'm not exempt from illness and disease. Actually, I forgot. Hold on here. My Zoom is being laggy, maybe because I'm recording at the same time. This is something it's a PDF that I made that you will all get to at the end. This is something that I suggest, like putting up somewhere in your room when you wake up or something like that, having it close to you so you can always reflect on these things, right? I am subject to illness. I'm not exempt from illness. I'm subject to death. I am not exempt from death. I must be parted and separated from everyone and everything dear and agreeable to me. Right, so we've already gone over this in the meditation, in the contemplation. I am the owner of my karma, heir of my karma. I have my karma as my origin, karma as my relative, karma as my resort. I will be the heir of whatever karma, good or bad, that I do. And after the Buddha gives these, he also reflects, one should reflect that I am not the only one who is subject to old age, sickness, and death, separation, owner of my karma. All beings that come and go, that pass away and undergo rebirth, are subject to these things. None are exempt. As a person often reflects on this theme, the path is generated. What is the path? The Noble Eightfold Path. The zeal and the desire to practice the path. That's what the Buddha is talking about here. So when we think about being subject to old age, there's a wonderful sutta. See, so many of these suttas I'm giving you are actually not any that I kind of was taught, but that I found from reading the suttas. There's lots of gems in there. And there's a sutta called Aging in the Anguttara Nikaya. Actually, it's in the Samyutta Nikaya. Again, it'll be on the list. And the sutta opens with the Buddha as an old man warming his back to the last rays of the setting sun. Isn't that beautiful? Right, to think about the Buddha as an old man, getting some warmth. And Ananda says, "It's amazing, Bhante. I cannot believe it, Bhante. Before, your complexion was so clear and bright. Your skin was so firm. But now your skin is very wrinkled and your complexion is dull and all these things." Right? And so you see this very human moment, right, of understanding that the Buddha is in this old body. And Buddha says, such is the way it is it not? That which is liable to be born is liable to grow old, to grow sick, and to die. And the Buddha actually gives a little curse. This translator is like, "Fie on you, old age, that robs one of health and youth." So you see this he's awakened, so he's not suffering because of it, but he gives this little kind of old age that anybody who's not awakened yet can really, if you get old enough, you can start to, oh yeah, I get it. My mom, who's 73 now, and she's going through a lot of stuff, and she keeps repeating, she's from Italy, and she keeps repeating this Italian phrase that essentially means basically like life is a bitch. So I'll just be walking by and I'll hear the Italian phrase. I'm like, yeah. And it'll be my, if I live long enough, it'll be my turn to get to that point too. Right? So we understand that everything ages. Even the trees, you can go out and see the trees age. Not even just sentient beings. Everything ages. Even mountains. Right? The highest mountains on the planet are the youngest. Tall and firm and strong. The oldest are round and short. It's the way it goes. Everything, because you can even go scientific, the law of entropy, such and such. I'm not going to go too deep into it because I'm not a scientist, but you can even make scientific understandings for this. Even stars get old. It's the way it is. Same thing with sickness. Same thing with sickness. Everybody, even trees. You can go out into the forest and you can see trees with like cancerous bulbs and things like that. Because we have this body, this biological machine, just like your car breaks down, so does the body. You can try to be as healthy as you can, right? Do everything right, and you can still get sick. It's the way it is. I remember a comedian from my youth talking about this guy, Jim Fixx, I think, is if you're older, maybe you heard of him, but this like really health nut guy who he made a joke about how he was like, see, look what it did to him. He was so healthy, he dropped dead of a heart attack while running or something like that, right? That's the thing. Now you minimize your suffering the more you eat healthy and live healthy and stuff like that, but you can't escape it. Something's going to get you one of these days, one way or the other. And death, right? Subject to death. Everything is subject to death. All beings, the trees, even stars. 5 billion years from now, our star will be gone. The sun, right? Some odd like 30 trillion years from now, all the stars in the universe will be gone. Starting to get the picture? This whole old age, sickness, and death thing is much bigger than us. This is nature. Right? Way more than us go through the same thing. Now you can make an argument, well, the sun is not alive, yada, yada, yada. Yeah, you could make that argument, but it's still part of nature, just like us. Still subject to the same laws. Old age, sickness, and death. And because everybody is subject to this, everybody you know and will ever meet, it naturally and logically flows from that you will be separated. Like the Buddha, there's a whole section in the Samyutta Nikaya where he gives a list of things, different suttas. So there's the famous one is Asu Sutta, tears, right? Where the Buddha says, greater than all the water in all the great oceans are the tears that you've shed from losing mother, father, spouse, child, relative, and friend throughout all of your wanderings in samsara. That's powerful. There's another one. Greater than all the water and all the great oceans is the mother's milk that you've drank in all of your lives through samsara. There's another one that most people don't talk. This is, again, I never heard anyone talk about this until I saw it. Greater than all the water and all the great oceans is the amount of blood that you have spilled by decapitating and being decapitated. That's a pretty violent one, but it's there, right? So we have this understanding that we will be separated. Right? Tears are part of life because we have beings, because we are beings, frail beings subject to old age, sickness, and death. We will be together with each other for a time, whether it's a day, a year, 60 years. And then eventually there will come time of separation. This is the nature of these things. Years ago, when I did my 4 years of therapy, My therapist had a good analogy for this when it comes to people. He says, people are like a river. They flow into your life and they flow out. And he says it's not good, it's unskillful if you dam people from coming in, like damming the river so that you don't let anybody in. And also if you dam the river so that you don't let anybody out. It's a very Buddhist thing that this gentleman told me. And I've always remembered that, right? People will flow in and people will flow out. Because of our craving, because of our likes and dislikes, we dam people out or we try to dam people in. Or we don't want to do either. It's simply the nature that we will come into contact with people and we will lose contact with people. This is all there is. This is how it is. And so perhaps the most important point of the 5 remembrances is the last of the 5. Knowing that you will grow old and everybody you know will grow old, that you will get sick and everybody you know you will get sick, that you will die and everybody you know will die. You will be separated from them. Knowing these things, how do you act? Right? The 5th one is all about how you act. I am the owner of my actions, heir of my actions, have my karma as my relative, karma as my resort. Whatever I do for good or evil, to that I shall be the heir. So the Buddha is always talking about how do you choose to act, right? We have in my Discord, in my online Sangha, we have a young guy who's in Ukraine right now, right? And what can you say to somebody that's in a situation like that? Especially that you don't know, if you've never been in a situation like that. A young person who's probably going to be conscripted to have to fight and all these kind of things. The only thing, to me, the only thing you can tell them is how do you choose to act in that situation, right? The simile of the mountains. The mountains are closing in. What can you do? Act virtuously, act skillfully, practice Dhamma. What else can you do? Right, so the Buddha is telling us this. How do you choose to live? Knowing that all of these, you want to call them tragedies of life, realities of life, knowing that all of this is going to happen, how do you choose to live? How do you choose to act? Right? The divine messengers, King Yama. Did you not see that? Did you not see this divine messenger and figure, well, maybe I should act well, act skillfully? That's what it's all about. That's why I say mindfulness of death and life. Because all of these mindfulness of death practices are as much about how you live as about coming to an understanding of the reality of your existence. How do you choose, when the mountains are rolling in, and they are, even if you're young, when the mountains are rolling in, how do you choose to act? That's the most important thing. I remember in my youth from the Lord of the Rings, right? When maybe some of you might know this reference. It's a wonderful quote, very Buddhist quote, right? When Frodo says, I wish it were not me that had to deal with this to be in this time. And Gandalf says, no, well, so do all who have to be in this time. We don't have what's the most important thing is to choose what to do with the time that we have, right? That's exactly what the Buddha is saying right there. Right? We don't know how much time we have, right? our friend who's in Ukraine can be safe and live a long, healthy life and die when he's 90. And I can die tomorrow. We don't know. Who knows? We don't know. But we can choose how we want to act. We can choose how we choose to live. That is the message of the 5 remembrances, the 5 subjects of contemplation. The message is, how do you choose to act? Because your actions are your relative, right? You will bear fruit of your actions. So how do you choose to act? That's the most important message. And if we just avoid, if we're not mindful and we don't think that, hey, I'm not going to get old. I'm not going to die. If we live like that, then we're not going to choose to act skillfully. Right? We're not going to act in a beneficial way. It's very important to have that mindfulness and that awareness, and then acting accordingly and skillfully. So friends, I think we can come to the end of this Dhamma talk here. I think everybody has survived the Dhamma talk. And now we can do our guided meditation. Set your body up in a comfortable and stable position. Spending a few minutes scanning through your body, adjusting your posture to support your balance and to minimize pain that arises later. The more you spend time setting up your posture now, the longer you can sit without having to move and to wiggle. The more still you are in mind and in body, the deeper your mind will go into tranquility. When you're done setting up your body in a comfortable and stable position, let the body go and take 3 deep breaths. And then let the breath go. Let go of the breath. Lay down your burden. Follow the breath in and out. Remember, whenever you get distracted away from the breath, acknowledge, let go, and return. Repeat after me in your mind. I may die today. I may die tomorrow. I may die at any time. Because life is uncertain, but death is certain. There are many ways that I may die. From food, sudden health conditions, accidents, maliceness. Innumerable ways that this life can be snuffed out and ended. I, who can die at any time, am subject to aging and decay. I am not exempt from aging and decay. If you'd like a visual to practice with from here on out, you can visualize yourself sitting in front of you, like looking in a mirror. Slowly watch as that self grows older. The hair becomes grayer, the skin becomes more wrinkly, pale. Watch yourself grow older. Repeat. I am subject to illness and disease. I am not exempt from illness and disease. You can have that image in front of you become sick, weak and coughing, hard to move. Whatever arises, repeat. I am subject to death. I have not gone beyond death. You can visualize that version of you in front of you falling back to the ground, lifeless. The body just like a dead tree stump, lifeless and useless on the ground. Repeat. I will be separated from everyone and everything I hold dear. Repeat, I am the owner of my actions, heir of my actions, have my actions as my relative. Whatever actions I do, good or bad, to that I shall be the heir. When the mountains are closing in, how do you choose to live? If you truly lived like you were dying, knowing that you only had until the morning left in this life, how do you choose to live? How do you act? Repeat. I am subject to these 5 facts because I have this body. This body made up of many thousands of parts working together to function and do its job. This body has hair of the head, body hair, nails, teeth, all wrapped in skin, holding everything in, a protective layer, keeping the internal. These parts of the body are what you can see, what you see of other people's bodies. Hair, nails, teeth, and skin. We beautify our body, paint our nails, comb our hair, perfume, cologne, all kinds of things that we do to beautify this body, to mask the unpleasant parts of the body, smells and sounds. Repeat. Inside this body, there are many systems of organs, such as the circulatory system that brings blood around the body, the respiratory system, which brings air in and out, the nervous system, the reproductive system, urinary, many different groupings are in this body. Even if we can't see them because the skin covers them up. Repeat, reflect. This body is held up, given shape by bones. Connected to those bones are sinews, joints, muscles, allowing the bones to move, the body to move around. Inside the body, there's the tongue, the throat, and the esophagus, the lungs, the liver, kidneys, spleen. So many parts packed into this body under the skin. If you like, if you're able to, you can visualize the various parts, either inside the body or outside by themselves. The point is not to try and get to a point where we force ourselves to be disgusted. The point is simply to balance out our intoxication with a true understanding of what this body is. This biological machine living out its life, getting sick, growing old, and eventually coming to the final end. If you like, you can reflect on one particular grouping, like the respiratory system, contemplate its cycles and how it works. The amazing complexity of this biological machine, performing millions of actions every minute, all over the body. Cells dying and repairing, tissue dying and repairing. Let's now spend some time examining the body in terms of the four elements. In this body, there is water element, earth element, fire element, and wind element. The earth element in this body are all of the hard physical things, all the organs, the skin, the nails, the bones. All the structures. The water element in the body covers all the various liquids, blood and pus and urine, milk and semen, and all these kinds of liquids. All these liquids that grease the joints of the machine, synovial fluid, acid in the liver. This body has fire element. The temperature in the body, the heat that's generated, giving forth the life essence. The wind element in the body, consisting of various gaseousness, gas in the digestive system, air coming in and out of the lungs, various flows of air inside the body. Spend some time on your own contemplating the parts, systems of the body, the elements, however you choose to go about it, visually, verbally, both. Come to know this body that you inhabit very deeply.